Welcome.
Thank you so much.
I'm Caitlin Abbott. I'm a board member and the vice chair for the Housing and Human Services Committee. Brian, our chair, I think is associated with the farmers market, so he is not taking part in this. But since you have got two programs, we've got 30 minutes set aside for you. It'll primarily be Q&A style for that from board members as well as staff. Before we get started, it would be helpful if you could introduce yourself. I'm a fairly new board member, and we've got other new folks who may not know you and the programs. So if you want to take just a couple of minutes to introduce yourself before we start with questions.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Mickey Davis. I'm going on my second season at Boulder County Farmers Markets. I have a master's of public health, and I'm a registered dietitian, and I am the local food access specialist. So I manage all of the food access programs that we put on at the market, that we are so lucky to be able to put on, due in large part to the generosity from funders like you guys. So as you all may know, the farmers market, Boulder County Farmers Market, operates 4 growers only markets. And this year, due to COVID, we've launched an online ordering platform with a contactless curbside pickup. So that has added a lot more accessibility for our markets, which is cool. And a huge part of our mission at Boulder County Farmers Markets is to connect the producer to the consumer. And we're lucky to have had 30 years of experience operating food access programs that give us the capability to further this mission.
Great. Thank you so much. Is there anybody who has a question? Deanna.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for being here and for everything that you do for our community. I just had a question actually about your curbless or your contactless curbside pickup as well. I've used that service this season multiple times. I'm just curious because I was also thinking that it increased probably accessibility for people that might have a hard time navigating the market. I was wondering if there are plans to continue that after COVID, or if it's too onerous to continue, because it does seem like a labor of love, I'll just say. It's a lot of work, I can tell.
Yeah, it's been a really challenging, but also very exciting year. The curbside operation launched in early April, when we realized we've got to come up with a plan B. And through a lot of trial and error, we've been really lucky to see that this model is sustaining itself, which is incredible for any business operation in its pilot year, especially, a pandemic year. So it is our wholehearted intention to, and we did get approval from our board to continue operating the online ordering curbside pickup through next year. We're anticipating that the impacts of the pandemic will be felt all of next year, but there are a lot of really cool perks to operating this curbside pickup. One being that we can extend our season year round, which is totally unprecedented in the state of Colorado. And it provides a sales opportunity for our farmers, and also, importantly, for the programs that I operate, typically there's this gap in the year when we don't get to serve our population. And so with the extended season, we'll be able to offer that year round. So to answer your question, yes, we're going to operate next year, and then, we'll go case by case, but we're projecting for this to be something we do indefinitely.
Wants to go first.
Hi, welcome, and thanks for all that you do. I have a couple of questions. I'm just wondering, where do you get the fruit and vegetables when it's not the growing season?
So we are once we got the green light to be able to operate this curbside pickup into the winter, we started reaching out to all of our farmers saying, can you either A, plant some more crops now for us because you'll have a buyer, or B, would you be willing to sell us your storage crops? So things like rutabaga, carrots, parsnips, potatoes, apples, all those things, anything you would keep in a root cellar. We quickly tried to contract with our producers to invite them to sell them to us, and then we could sell them sort of in a wholesale fashion. We also have some growers that use greenhouses. So, Rocky Mountain Fresh, Honeyacre Farms, they grow nightshade vegetables, and they have the capacity to grow them year round. So that will fill out our offerings. And then, we've got packaged food vendors who, are able to sell us product in the off season too. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Do you try and get a percentage of organic?
Yeah, it is a huge priority of ours and in our application process, in order to become a vendor, there is an extensive vetting of what are your practices, what are your fair labor standards, and are you certified organic? And we certainly prioritize growers that do have that certification. We do recognize that that certification can be expensive and challenging to get all the time. So we work with other growers who maybe aren't certified organic, but use no sprays, things like that.
I'm wondering, how are you supporting sustainability and farmers and ranchers in Boulder County, because people want to keep, taking away that kind of land?
Yeah.
How are you trying to help with that? And do you have farmers other than just in Boulder County?
Yes. So we currently work with, I think this year was challenging, to be quite frank. There were some farmers that had so much demand for their CSA that they didn't need the market this year. So we anticipate those farmers to come back in future years. But we work with anywhere from 95 to 150 farmers. The vast majority of them come from a 40-mile radius to our markets. We are working with, we've worked for years with farmers out on the Western Slope, in the Southwestern corner. And this online platform has allowed us to expand our vendor, we need more product. So we're offering more opportunity to farmers. So we've enrolled more farmers on board this year that we've never worked with before. Like Jones Organic Potato Farm is one that comes to mind. They're in the Southwest. I'm spacing on the location, but
I got it. And then I'm not quite sure on this voucher.
We've got a couple of other questions. Sorry, Karen, can we come back to you?
But we have a whole half hour. I just thought I'd get them all out of the way. But okay, great. No,
Yeah, I just want to make sure we get some questions from other folks.
sure.
Anne,
Sure.
I think you had something. No, okay. Aliberto.
So yeah, I had a couple of questions too, and I'll keep it brief. So I make sure that Karen gets her other questions answered.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
My primary question, though, Mickey, is, when I look at the agency budget and then when I look at the program budget, one of my concerns, and I was wondering if there's any thought about, is that, basically you have two sources of revenue, right? You have a lot of government funding, and then of course what the market produces. And in particular in the program budget, it feels like it is heavily subsidized by government funding. And so I'm wondering if there's any concerns as we look at what COVID has impacted government spending. We're not sure what it's going to mean for the city of Boulder. They definitely are cutting back. Has there been any discussions at the board level around diversifying funding?
Yeah, that our food access programming has been identified as a strategic area for us to diversify our funding streams. We've been really fortunate to already know what our allocation is from the city of Boulder to operate our programs there. So we do utilize City of Boulder funds to supplement with a lot of the administrative costs of running these food access programs. So we feel lucky to have some funding for that infrastructure in place already. As you all may or may not know, the Longmont WIC Farmers Market program this year was largely funded by Boulder County Sustainability Tax funds. We have been told that we will be a recipient of that funding again this year, which is something we feel really lucky about, but we have also been told that it will not be anywhere close to what the allocation was this year for 2020. And we were told that before the pandemic. So we know it won't be what it was this year, which was $105,000. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, sort of. I also know that you're a 501c4. So you're not a 501c3. So I know that also makes it challenging to diversify. I wonder if there's any thoughts on opening a 501c3.
Yes.
501c3 agency to help.
Yeah.
Because I guess the concern is there's a lot of reliance on government funding for both programs, both the FTCE, the food farm to table, early childhood, and the WIC dollars.
Yeah. Well, a couple things. One, we are we have made a lot of steps towards attaining our 501c3 status, but with all of the extra work that COVID and our online curbside pickup, that's sort of fallen to the back burner. But we have, I think we're like 85% of the way there. I think it kind of came down to a lawyer and filling out some documents and submitting them. And we've been kind of backlogged by all of the extra work that 2020 has handed us. But it's been encouraging. This year has been a heavy year for us in applying to all kinds of grants to support our operating budget because our sales have been a lot less than 2019 in particular, but a typical year. We've taken a large hit. So every member of our staff has been applying to grants and loans, and we are very fortunate that even despite our 501c4 status, we've still been able to receive upwards of $250,000 this year in grants and loans. And we just got some exciting news this week that $90,000 of our PPP loan will be forgiven, which is really encouraging for the sustainability of the market. I think there was one more point I wanted to address with the, I want to highlight the fact that the vast majority of the funds that we apply for are, for the incentives, what we call the incentives, or the money that turns into a food voucher. So it may go without saying, but us receiving this funding does not directly benefit BCFM. In fact, for every dollar we receive, we wind up donating 40 cents of in-kind to make sure these programs run effectively. So we really are, we're applying on the behalf of the participants that use our program, love our program, and we carefully calculate what our request is based off of the demand. And I think in 2018, we received just over $5,000 for the WIC Farmers Market program in Longmont, and that was used up in 3 months. And in 2019, that amount was more than tripled, but it was used up in 8 weeks. So in 2020, we were really lucky to receive such a surplus of funding, both from Longmont Human Services Agency and also from the sustainability tax. And with the $50,000 that we received from this organization, we expended that by September. So even despite significant market disruptions and program disruptions, we were still able to expend all of those vouchers before the season ended. So due to careful calculations, we anticipate that we'll need a lot more to run this program without having to cut it short.
Thanks, Mickey. I have 2 questions. The first is around, you mentioned a lot has moved online. Can you talk a little bit about what, if anything, your organization has done around, so that obviously makes it more accessible to some folks, and then you also have sort of the opposite end where folks who are not online shoppers or don't have reliable access to internet, what options are available there, or what work you've done around accessibility for those folks?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way we have brought our food access programs online has been kind of trial and error, bit by bit, and hugely informed by our Food Access Advisory Board, who, you know, we meet with monthly, and we deeply value the lived experience and the expertise that board brings to us. So this year has been a huge year of relying on the advice from our advisory board. But to get back to your question, the way we brought our food access programs online for WIC families, what they do is they fill out a simple Google form. I email the link to the form weekly, and I also have a list of phone numbers that I text weekly, so folks without a computer can still have access to it. Google Forms are pretty mobile friendly, so we do receive a lot of orders coming in from folks who don't have a computer or email. So once the order is placed, that gets entered into our system. We send a request to farmers for what we'll need. We receive product, we pack it out, and then we either work with Via Mobility, who is our incredible partner that we cannot say enough good things about, to do home deliveries of those bags, or if they choose, the WIC family can come and pick up the bag. So what we learned this year too is that as easy and friendly as we thought it was to simply fill out a few questions in a Google form, WIC families really enjoyed not having to do that every week. And so we created a sort of CSA model where they can sign up for in advance for a few weeks, and there's been overwhelming popularity with that. program.
Thanks. You alluded to your food access advisory board, and I'm looking at the demographics that you submitted for your board. I'm wondering, number one, if you have demographic information for that food access advisory board, and whether you have considered some of the measures that you cite that you've done for that food access advisory board, such as providing a stipend for attending those board meetings, whether you have considered doing that for your board as a whole to increase diversity on that board. Particularly, obviously Boulder County has certain demographics, but there's no African Americans on your board as a whole. So that's sort of a two-part. Do you have demographics for that advisory board, and what are you doing in terms of recruiting and or supporting folks for the board, the board for the organization?
So currently our food access advisory board consists of three passionate members. They all are folks that we recruited from our population. So all of them use our programs and are either on SNAP or WIC or both. One of those members has experienced homelessness and has gone in and out of homelessness in our time with her on the board. We have another member of our board who is Latinx, and she has gone above and beyond with recommendations, translation corrections, and truly serving as a cultural broker and spreading the word in her population about the benefits of the farmers market. So our three member advisory board consists of one Latina and two white women. So we actually included a request in this application cycle to expand that board, including a more representative survey of our food access population. So currently Boulder County Farmers Market pays for those stipends. In terms of our Boulder County Farmers Market's board, I do not attend board meetings, and I can only speak to what I know, but I can get more information on this. I do know that it is a requirement that 51% of the board are farmers. So that has been a priority in our board. I do know that our board lacks diversity, and in part that has been a product of the fact that farming is the whitest profession, and it's something that we have to reckon with and acknowledge that farming is the whitest profession on purpose, because historically there have been policies put in place that white folks are the landowners. So with this in mind, I do know that it is going to be a huge priority to recruit board members that represent a more diverse segment of our population. I don't know if there has been a consideration to provide a stipend for the members of the board, but I can bring that back to my team and give them that idea.
Thank you. Are there other questions from folks? We have just a few minutes left.
Wow, time flies.
Karen, did you have others that you wanted to come back to?
Sure. Since nobody else wants to say anything, how do you prevent the duplication of services like with other organizations?
Well, with just a few minutes, we really feel that our programs that we offer at the market do provide folks with a more nutritionally dense product. And it's not just us that feels that. In surveys, 95% of respondents say that the food that they can get at the market is superior to food that they can find anywhere else. And when we compare our programs to other emergency food access programs, we know that it's a common sentiment that those programs tend to be low on fresh fruits and vegetables. They may even be low on providing access and choice to the participant. So we are very proud to be able to offer an abundance of choice, an abundance of variety, and the freshest, most nutritionally dense product. And that is valued because 95% of our participants say that they eat more vegetables due to the fact that these programs exist.
That's wonderful. One other thing, do the people that set up their booths, do they have to pay money to do that? And
Yes.
Do they share their profits?
What's that?
Do they share their profits?
Yes, so there is a stall fee to set up, and then they pay a small percentage of their daily sales back to us just to run our operations. And so that's what pays the salary of all of our market staff and all of our market coordinators, and the fees that we need to pay to operate the market.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mickey? How are we on time, Karen?
We have about 5 minutes.
Okay. Mickey, is there anything? Oh, Councilmember Christensen.
So, Mickey, you also have to pay a fee to the county to rent the field. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we have lots of costs.
Yeah.
Our own rent, and now that we have a warehouse space, we've got a lot of additional costs this year that we didn't last year. We've got these walk-in coolers that we purchased. We have space on a warehouse. We've got numerous trucks, a lot of supplies that it takes to run and operate the market.
And then you have to pay a fee for the winter market too, right?
Yes, we are unfortunately not having our annual winter market, which we're very sad about, but it's COVID, so we're kind of taking it in stride.
Yeah. Okay.
Karen Phillips.
Yeah, I'll just keep asking some questions. I'm kind of confused about the voucher. How do you pass that out, and do the vouchers pay for food for low-income families?
Yeah, so for our WIC program, Boulder County WIC families get a little sticker on their e-WIC card, and then they just present that at the market, and we hand them a bundle of $20 worth of vouchers that they can go and spend at the market. Our other food access program for SNAP recipients, SNAP is a federal food assistance program, and they have funds loaded onto an EBT card, electronic benefits. So the Double Up program, the way it works is they come to the market, they come to the information booth, they swipe their EBT card, and for however many bucks they want to take off of their EBT card, we match that in bucks that are good for just fruits and vegetables. So that's a statewide run program, and it helps those federal dollars stay in Longmont,
Awesome.
stay local, and it really supports our farmers.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you.
Deanna.
So I just had a question about your nutrition education program, and how COVID is sort of like how you've had to pivot to deal with some of those components of that education program, if you're doing things more by Zoom, or if you've just sort of had to abandon some of those programs?
So are you talking about the Farm to Early Childcare Center? Yeah. So impressively, a lot of those childcare centers did not close at all for the pandemic. So not a whole lot really changed with our educational programming. In fact, it suited this pandemic season a little bit better because a lot of the lesson plans are outside in a garden. So that was very appealing. What I will say is we typically apply for a fund of veggie bucks where childcare centers can come to the market and spend those bucks. We did not apply for that arm of our program this year due to the fact that we, in our close connections working with the health department, we've been told to reduce crowd sizes, and we sort of felt that encouraging childcare centers to come to the markets with the kids would be in a little bit of opposition to that recommendation from the health department.
Thank you.
So Caitlin, we're just about out of time, and I think Polly had a question. Maybe she gets the last word. Or did you not have a question?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay.
I appreciate your time, and thank you so much. Nice to meet everybody.
Thanks, Mickey.
All right, great.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, I'll go ahead and let
I'm gonna let Brian in.
Brian in and rename him, and then we'll let Dina in.
Okay.
Okay, Brian, you are in. You should be renamed. I'm going to go ahead and let Dina in from Community Food Chair.
Welcome back, Brian.
Hi, everybody.
Dina, can you hear us?
Yes, I just got unmuted. Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, and you're welcome to turn on your camera if you want to.
Oh, it's not? Okay, hold on. Here I am.
Hi, Dina. How are you?
I'm good. How is everybody? Hopefully healthy and safe.
So far, yeah.
Good.
How's your staff doing over there?
Tired. I don't know how else to say. It's been a long 8 months. Today, the lines were unreal. So I think this week's going to be harder than usual. Usually the week before a holiday, more people come than the week of the holiday. I think they're afraid of there not being food, or so
Yeah.
everybody's out. So
All
we're all
right,
good.
well, I think we'll get a chance to talk about that
Okay.
and other things. So as you know, it's a 15-minute Q&A. There's one program, right, for this?
Yes.
Okay, 15-minute Q&A. So the board and staff will have questions. I'll have the opportunity to answer. And if you wouldn't mind starting with an introduction, particularly for our new board members, that would be really helpful.
Okay, sure. I'm Dina Coates-Kobler, and I am the Chief Development Officer at Community Food Share, and I've been there 4.5 years.
Great, thank you, Dina. Okay, do we have any opening questions from the board or staff? Let's see, let's go Eliberto and then Diana.
So, Dina, my question, I'm going to start around the strategic goals of the agency. You know, what I saw was some really good programmatic goals, but I'm wondering if you have some agency level goals around how you're going to, because I know that you have been, as an agency, in the maelstrom of COVID, right? You're one of those areas that has had to really ramp up your services. And so what I would love to hear about is just what kind of strategies are you thinking for next year? As you gauge the COVID impact on the agency and what that means for funding. For example, I heard that peanut butter is like 4 months out. That's huge. So I guess that's my question.
Okay, it's a good question. We, as part of the Feeding America Network, in working collaboratively across the country, we anticipate that this is a 3 to 5 year increase in services. That even once a vaccine's developed and people get it, the jobs aren't going to be there. Our participants are heavily impacted. So we don't anticipate that this is going to be gone in 9 months and we're going to return to what was normal for us. This is exactly what we're here for, right? Like these kind of situations, usually it's a fire or a flood or, job loss. It's not a pandemic. We are seeing more people that were donors that are now participants than ever before. And again, this is what we're here for. So in a way, it's validating for people to understand all the years that they supported us, that when they need us, we'll be here for them too. We've had to add some staff. We've added temporary in the warehouse. We can't move the volume of food that we're moving right now without adding staff. We've had to buy some pallet jacks. We're taking over the biggest unmet need that we got from our partner agencies is space. And because of the delays that you mentioned in the food supply chain, we may order 5 trucks at one time, not knowing when any of them are going to come in. And one of our partner agencies might only be able to take 2 pallets of peanut butter. They really want 6, but they don't have room to store it. So then by the time they come back to get the other 4 pallets, it's gone. So we've given up our lease space next door and are creating that into a community space where our 40 partner agencies can safely store their food. They can order what they need. They know it's there ready when they need it. Maybe they're doing an extra drive for the holidays, whatever, and the food will be there for them. So across the board, we're trying to increase our programming staff. We just hired a SNAP coordinator within the warehouse to get the food moving out to the partner agencies. Our team, because we need to raise a whole lot of money for a lot of years ahead to maintain this level. So we've invested in our staff and we've invested in some capital, small capital gains, but some capital investments to help us do what we're doing. We can't have people shop in the building anymore. That's probably the biggest change for us. People would come in, you've been to El Liberto for a tour and they shop like a grocery store. So since COVID, it's a drive-through model. So every one of those 500 families a day's food has to be picked up and carried and put in the back of a trunk. So it was fine in the summer. It doesn't rain very much. Now with winter coming, we're trying to come up with some little guard stands outside so the volunteers and staff don't freeze to death doing that. And we're also looking at some kind of awning thing that at least the cars can pull up and we can get the food in. So it's a total shift in every aspect of what we do, other than be here to give people nutritious food.
Great, thank you, Dina. Diana?
Yeah,
Oh,
hi. So first of all, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I do really feel like your organization is sort of doing triage right now and on the front lines of the issues we're facing with the pandemic. So I really appreciate what you're doing. I'm going to ask you sort of a bigger long-term question about the lack of diversity on your board. And I also wanted to say that I appreciate you sort of hitting that head on in your application and the answers that you provided. But I thought maybe you could talk about a couple things. First, where you're attempting to recruit board members. And then it also looked like most of your board members are from Boulder and that you don't have any board members in Longmont. And I think Longmont's probably a little more diverse than Boulder. So I don't know if you're focusing any more efforts on trying to recruit from outside areas or maybe you could just talk about those issues.
It's been an ongoing, this is not the first time I've answered this question. It's an ongoing issue. There was a woman, I want to say her name was Maxine or something close. I see Karen knows who I'm talking about.
Karen, you're on
It's
mute.
Madeline, and she's still on the board.
Okay, Madeline. So I know that I passed her information on. Thank you for sharing that. I shared that with our, at that time, board president and executive director. I know that they reached out and had conversations. I wasn't privy to those conversations. I do know that we have new leadership we have had for the last year, and Kim is very committed to this, and we have a far more structured, formalized board matrix that they're working off of. And I know that what's the PC way to say this? We had to wait for some people to rotate off, and we're going to have openings now. And I know that we have openings coming up in January. So I would be confident that that is a priority for the board and the committee. Does that answer your question, Deanna?
I think so. I mean, it sounds like it does sound like you've been devoting some energy and some resources to this over time, and that with an opening that hopefully things can shift over the next tenure of the board with those openings.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
And we're also doing some really, you're not asking about staff, but intensive diversity and inclusion training with a gentleman from Denver and actually a couple different resources across the country. And we've joined the Latin Chamber of Commerce, Latino Chamber of Commerce. And so we've got one of our programs people that is two women that are both Spanish speaking. So we're also hoping that will help in the efforts to get a more diverse board that's reflective of the participants that we serve.
And Dana, this is Madeline.
Hi, Madeline.
Hi, I am yet available, and feel free to contact me.
I will give your our new executive director is Kim De Silva, and I will give her I gave your business card away last time. I will give Kim your name and have her reach out to you. Thank you for the offer.
Great, thank you, Dina.
You're welcome.
Deanna actually asked the question that I was looking at, Brian. So.
Oh, okay, all right. Any other questions? Karen Phillips?
Yeah, I was just wondering, how do you determine what organizations get your food, and how do you get your food?
Okay, two big questions. We get our food pre-COVID. Most of our food was rescued food that we got from local retailers. We also glean from local farmers and have farmers like Munson's plants acres of corn for us. So that was how we did things pre-COVID. There is much less food to rescue right now since COVID. And so that has dried up. Plus our numbers have gone up over 32%. So we're having to purchase a whole lot more food than we've ever done before. So that's another area of our services that's changed drastically, is rather than relying so heavily on local food sources, we're now vying and competing with major retailers. We're in there with the King Soopers and the Albertsons, same, food producers trying to get food, and we want it for less, so we're a little lower on the chain. So that is how we get food. And then we have 40 partner agencies. The newest one is CU Boulder, but they cover the age span of our communities from the youngest to the eldest. And they go through a formalized process to become a partner agency of ours. And we're one of only 5 food banks in the country that doesn't charge our partner agencies for the food. We charge a nominal annual administrative fee, and then we give them the food free for the rest of the year.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Another question? Eliberto?
I just had a question about your finances.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at your audit, and in 2018, you had a $277,000 loss. In 2019, it was $229,000. But you seem to be having a banner year this year, according to your year to date. Is that attributed to COVID?
I will say that the community's been so unbelievably generous. Again, working through the Feeding America network, we know that bubble's going to burst. And when that bubble bursts, we're going to be in big trouble because we are spending so much on food right now. But our community has stepped up wonderfully and allowed us, again, to get a temporary person in the warehouse and the SNAP coordinator, et cetera. So we had some rough years there, and also part of that is our accounting process. And I don't want to say this, and I used to have it written down. We did accrual versus the cash basis, and so at the mid-year, some of that impacted our audits and made it look worse than it actually was. But we are putting as much away as we can now, knowing that what's coming up, a 3 to 5 year, individual donors aren't going to support this. They can't, I don't think, at this level. We're going to see donor fatigue pretty quickly here. So we're hoping to make it through the holiday season, which is typically very good for us anyway. And then we're going to, more collaborations and stuff within the community to do what we need to do.
Great. Karen Roney, can I get a time check? You're on mute. Just Karen, I'm sorry, you were on mute, so I didn't hear you.
I was on mute, so I didn't say anything.
Oh, really?
So we have about 2 minutes left.
Okay, all right. Another question? Anne, is your hand up? No, okay. Nina, I have one question for you. I'm curious about, one of the things that in the application that is discussed is best practices. And I'm wondering if I don't know if it's the Feeding America network or if there's another kind of food bank umbrella agency that kind of investigates that. Is to the extent like of the hub and spoke model, is that still considered the most efficient, and buying practices, those kinds of things? Do you have a resource for that kind of thing?
It is Feeding America,
Okay.
being under that network, and it's great for us because they have resources that aren't available to the smaller, food banks across the country. So yes, they help us with nutritional standards and government programs, and every aspect of what we do. For me in development, it's so helpful we are broken down into peer groups. So I meet monthly with other food banks that are our size. I don't have time to reinvent the wheel. None of us do, right? And so to see what are the best practices across the country. And we have we're on Yammer, so daily people throw out questions and suggestions. And, one of the big ones now is, how do you communicate to the public that someone on your staff has tested positive for COVID? And so, we do benefit greatly from having that experience. And, we may be very different, but bottom line is we have food waste in this country. We're not making the connections between the people that need food and the people that manufacture food. Those commonalities are all the same. And together, collectively, we're a much stronger force, and we serve each other. They're our peers. So it's very helpful.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 20 seconds. So if you want to wrap it, you can.
I just want to say thank you so much. I'm sure all of you know the majority of our food does go into the Longmont community, and the Longmont community's very near and dear to us. And there are wonderful things happening in your community. I was just there. I met the other food banks last Friday, and they had never been to Longmont. We went to the pump house outside, and it was lovely. And they were like, why do we never come to Longmont? So many good things happening in your community, and thanks for supporting our efforts in Longmont.
Great. Thank you, Dana. Well, thank you for everything you do. It's a huge part of the community, so we're grateful.
Be safe, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.
Okay, we're gonna jump right into Uproot.
Yep, David is waiting. I will let him in. David, not sure if you can hear us, but you feel free to unmute yourself and turn on your camera.
Hey, David, how are you?
Hey, Brian. I'm doing all right. How y'all doing?
Good, good. Thanks for joining us. I'm the chair of the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board, so I'm going to do a little bit of orchestrating. And we have 15 minutes of Q&A. The board members and staff are going to have some questions for you, give you the opportunity to answer them. If there's any time left that hasn't been used up in the Q&A, it's open for any comments that you'd like to make or feedback you'd like to give. And if you could start with an introduction, I believe this is the first time you have applied for City of Longmont Housing Human Services Fund. So if you could start with an introduction, that'd be great.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is David Laskrzuski. I'm co-director of Uproot Colorado. Mission of Uproot is to reduce surplus protected foods on farms or throughout Colorado. Support farmers. We have an initiative that tries to help support farmers and increase the nutritional security of our residents. So Uproot received its letter of determination earlier this year in February. So we are now a fledgling nonprofit. We are in the process of establishing a board, and all of the accoutrements that go along with the responsibility that comes with a C3 status. So thanks for your time, and I'll try to be as succinct as I'm able.
Great, thanks, David. All right, do we have any board members who want to open with a question, or staff? Ann Baldwin, and then Caitlin.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said exactly about going to farms in Colorado, and what do you do?
I'm just going to take off the earbuds. Can you all hear me better now?
Yes.
I'm seeing heads, not yes. Okay, so Uproot Colorado, what we do essentially is we try to reduce surplus protective food. So nationwide, it's estimated there's 20 billion pounds of food left on farms every year. In Colorado, the estimate is about 304 million pounds. And so right now, Hunger Free just a couple of months ago posted a stat that 1 in 3 Coloradans are currently experiencing some type of struggle to get enough food on their tables. So that's due to COVID-19, obviously. It was somewhere around 11% prior. So certainly it's made a tremendous difference. But so what we try to do is partner with farms and partner with hunger relief agencies to be the intermediary as far as our gleaning initiative goes, which is the focus of this grant proposal, and get volunteers who are trained and insured onto farms, and then harvest what is available, what the farmers make available or have left over, and then divert that to hunger relief agencies who then distribute it.
Great. And does that answer your question?
I guess I'm wondering what the difference is between that and what happens at our farmers market, where, and I know that the farmers are selling their crops there, but I guess it's different because you're taking the product out of the actual fields that the farmers aren't getting out.
So I don't know the exact weight that is, let's say at Boulder, the Boulder Farmers Market, that Boulder Food Rescue picks up. But I am guessing that the weights that we distribute from actual farm fields is going to be larger, and potentially more, with more farms, maybe a bigger variety at the end of the year. Does that make sense? So the volume, I'm guessing the volume would be larger via a gleaning initiative than coming at the end of a farmer's market and taking what's left over.
And why is there so much left over in the
So
field?
there's a couple of reasons for that. Sometimes farmers overproduce. Another reason is markets, grocery stores, national chains have a cosmetic standard. So you won't see fruit or vegetables that may be slightly nicked up or just looking a little bit different. You know, and then there's also labor shortages. So in agriculture, as in many industries, a lack of labor, particularly to agriculture, means that farmers cannot always get off the field what they need to get off the field. There was an article a couple of years ago in the Washington Post highlighting an orchardist, a farmer on the Western Slope, who said he just had peaches left on his trees because he couldn't get enough hands to harvest them. So there's a number of factors as to why there is surplus. I think one of the big factors is you got the cosmetic reason. Perfectly good food goes to back to the ground for no good reason, and also farmers can't receive any money for that. So, you know, yeah.
Sorry. Thanks, David. So I had Caitlin next, Madeline, Aliberto, and Councilmember Christensen.
Lots of questions coming your way, David. Thanks for being here. I have two questions. The first is, it looks like you've estimated the number of folks served based in part on, I think, maybe the number of pounds of food, but I'm curious how, as you know, you're fairly new, how are you tracking, or will you be tracking the number of families or individuals that you serve?
Probably not yet. I think that's something we have to evolve to do. So those numbers, you know, those numbers are estimates, and it's really just a factor of what I can tell you is this year. So we got funding from a Mile High United Way as part of a COVID-19 relief. We were able to secure a gleaning coordinator for the Northern Front Range, which is essentially Metro Denver. Claire has done most of her work in Boulder County. So this year we have, I think it's roughly 84% of what we've gleaned this year alone over the first 3 years of operations. So having another set of hands does make a difference. The numbers are something that we are an intermediary. So it's difficult to attribute numbers right now because we just don't have the complexity or the maturity to really be able to track that. Because if we glean 4,000 pounds of cabbage from Kilt Farm, and that goes to community food share, we currently don't have any way of knowing how that's distributed. Hopefully we can mature that and begin to understand where that goes. But right now we don't have those numbers. Potentially food banks may, and over the winter, as I think I might have mentioned in the application, I'm going to do some follow-up with my connections to the food banks and see if there's any data that we can begin to discern.
Great. My second question is, it sounded like, I think in your introduction section, you mentioned you're fairly new and you're working on establishing your first board. Is that correct? And can you tell us a little bit about what you anticipate that looking like and what you're doing in terms of recruiting a diverse board for the organization?
Sure. So right now, we had our first board meeting on Saturday, our inaugural board meeting. I took the board link off of our website because one of the board members, who's a financial guy, said that, do you have your D&O policy in place? And we do not yet. So for protection of the board members, I took their names down. We hopefully will have that insurance policy in place this month, so I can put everybody back up. So right now, we've got two academics. John Brett is a professor emeritus at University of Colorado, Denver. Lisa Johnson is an adjunct professor at North Carolina State. She's arguably the leading researcher in on-farm surplus in the country. We've got Cortland Carpenter, who's an environmental engineer. Mike Spade, who is he's a rooftop gardener, and And then we're in the process of reaching out to other individuals right now. So the diversity that we may end up, if everyone says yes, there will be 2 to 3 people of color. There will be 1 gender neutral person. And then I had it written down, women to men ratio. We also have 1 farmer. And so it looks like 1 finance person, 1 farmer. So 4 women, 1 gender neutral, 4 men.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, David. Madeline, I know you had a question, and David, we've only got a few more minutes, I think. But I know there's a number of questions that people are wanting to ask. So just to give you a heads up on that.
I just didn't know if you want to, Brian, if you want to email them to me, I can try to give you written answers if we've got 6 minutes. So, but I'll try to be quicker.
Yeah, I just want to give you a heads up. You can answer them as you please. Madeline, go ahead.
Not a problem. Not a problem. And thanks again for being here. And thanks for what you do. I understand that you are relatively new. And actually, you answered pretty much the question that I initially had by answering Caitlin. The only thing in that answer, you said you had 2 to 3 people of color. Could you break that down for me?
1 woman, actually 2 women, 1 woman being Latinx, 1 woman being Black, 1 man being Black.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, Eliberto and then Councilmember Christensen.
Well, I'll try to make it quick, David. You know, you're a pretty new agency, but I'm assuming you're built on a model because when I look at your agency portion of the application, I didn't really see any real strategic goals, and I'm wondering if there's some goals that are going to be imported from a model that's being done elsewhere. You know, just kind of what is the plan?
Well, I think a specific strategic plan, Alberto, we have not developed yet, and that's going to be one of the tasks of the board. Right? We've been the first 3 years we were fiscally sponsored or impact charitable, which is to prove concept. So we didn't apply for our C3 status until we really thought that there was a need for us. Because people have you're trying to help feed people. You're going to get pats on the back, good job, great work, all of this stuff, which is great. But is it needed? So I think we really were mindful and deliberate about whether our work and mission is needed. After 2+ almost 3 years, we decided and proved that it was. So we applied for our status. Now we're in the process of actually putting more structure around the organization, which is to say, developing a strategic plan will be one of the tasks of the board moving forward. So I could answer these questions a little more in detail and in email if you want me to respond.
Eliberto, would you like more to that answer emailed?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful because it was kind of light on the and I understand the why, but it was kind of light on the agency side of the application.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to give you because the strategic plan is not developed yet. So I can point to other organizations that we've looked to for mentorship and what they have done and what our initiatives are and why they are and what we're planning to do to further them. But I can't give you a specific plan because it's not developed yet.
Great. Well, it sounds like if you could just email a little more detail, David, that would be helpful.
No worries.
Great, thank you. And Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, David. I appreciate what you do. It's very interesting. We have so much waste, and I'm wondering if you said you weren't sure exactly where this went, and I'm having a hard time understanding that. But I'm wondering if you work with larger institutions as well as things like community food share, for instance, hospitals or chefs or commercial canners or things, people who don't need to have that cosmetic perfection because they're creating something different out of the food, the actual produce, instead of just buying it outright, in which case they want, a pretty apple, and they don't really need a pretty apple, they need a tasty apple. So do you work with larger institutions?
To clarify, when I say I don't know where it means as far as the end user, so the individuals who are leveraging hunger relief agencies, I don't have the demographic breakdown of the food that we've gotten to these agencies this year, the 200 plus thousand servings. I don't know what that breakdown demographically or psychographically looks like. We do work primarily with hunger relief organizations, so Community Food Share is definitely a partner that we use because they have the distribution logistics in place that can efficiently take what we give them and distribute it correctly. As far as chefs and whatnot, so one of our prospective board members, she's an entrepreneur. She was part of the E4All accelerator cohort right now. We were able to get Alicia an invite, and she succeeded in obtaining a spot there. And so part of her business is around reducing surplus agriculture and using it to make product. So the short answer is yes, but when you talk about chefs and other organizations, right now, very limited. The Gleaning Initiative is really trying to get food that's surplus to tables that don't have.
And Brian, we are out of time.
Okay, thank you, Karen. David, thanks so much for making the time, and you're persistent and passionate, and it's a hard area to be both of those or either of those. So your work is appreciated.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, Longmont
Katie,
Meals on Wheels.
Yeah, we got Katie and Carla I texted them saying we're running a little late, so I let them know. So I'm gonna admit them.
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
Carla, can you hear us okay? And you are on mute, just in case you're trying to speak. Or...
And I were just texting. I'll let her know to refresh.
Okay, that's great. And we can go ahead and probably get started.
Okay.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm Brian. I'm the chair of the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board. We'll have 15 minutes for Q&A. And if there's any time left over that hasn't been used up with the Q&A, you're welcome to use it for any comments or feedback or anything like that.
Okay.
And if you wouldn't mind starting with an introduction, that would be wonderful.
Okay, I'm Katie Weiser, and I am the Development and Communications Director at Longmont Meals on Wheels.
Thank you, and hopefully we'll have Carla here soon.
Yep, and she's our Executive Director.
Yep, okay. So while Carla is reconnecting to our wonderful session, does anybody want to open with any questions? Deanna?
I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how COVID has impacted. I guess I had a couple questions on this. Like, are you experiencing a seriously increased demand during COVID since people are staying in, particularly people who are at risk? Are you experiencing less demand because people don't want people coming by their homes? And are you also able to do the sort of, I can't remember the term you used in the application, but I'll just call it a wellness check for lack of a better term, if you're not able to really interact with people because of COVID?
Yes, so in the first 2 months of the pandemic, which, when was that? Do we remember? March and April. We saw 100 new clients just in those 2 months alone. And then since then, we've leveled off. But that's just speaking clients. Our meals have continued to rise because the clients that are with us need us more than ever. We've usually, under non-pandemic circumstances, we have casual clients and we have, clients who really, can't really need us more than kind of the average older adult. And the people who kind of just casually needed us, we've seen they're just kind of taking a break right now. So the clients that we have right now need us more intensely than in the past. And so, yeah, we're doing a lot more kind of frozen meals for the weekends and evenings, and fewer people who just take a week off here and there if they have family coming to visit them. So a lot less fluctuation in, clients coming on and off depending on what's going on in their life. So yes, in that regard, we've definitely increased. And then as far as wellness checks, we're committed to wellness checks. It doesn't matter how they happen, we're committed to them. During the stay-at-home order in the spring, we were doing tele-wellness checks. Staff was doing that. We decided not to go with robocalls, and we're really glad we opted to kind of hand do them, so to speak. It was a really anxious time for clients. Not that it's gotten significantly less anxious, but it was a very anxious time for clients, and they definitely needed the daily check-in and interaction. And so now that we are delivering 3 days a week during the orange level, that's often enough that we can just kind of quick do spot check-ins with people that we didn't, have significant contact with Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so that's going pretty well right now.
Great. Thank you, Katie. And Carla, I'm glad you were able to get a more stable connection. Welcome.
Thank you. I don't know what's going on over here. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
But I'm here now.
Wonderful. And Karen wrote, so we're just doing the Q&A. Katie's already introduced you as the executive director.
Great.
We'll leave it as a tight introduction, and Karen has a question.
Okay, great.
So Katie, you talked about the orange level, and obviously on Friday we're going to red. So what does that mean for your service delivery?
That's a Carla question.
Or Carla. What does red mean?
We don't like red.
We don't like red, but we got it.
So for us, at this time, we are going to still try to stay at the 3 delivery days per week. But we are going to start putting some more checks in place that we necessarily haven't done before, such as for the volunteer drivers. We will be asking them to be taking their temperature. We will still be asking all the questions, for the wellness questions, that type of thing. But we also are going to start doing where they are doing contactless pickup. So we will have the meals and everything in coolers. They will come up, they will get them. We will sanitize the cooler before another meal is put in for the next driver. So that's going to be a big change for us there. It really is getting to the point we can't cut down that much more on personnel. We have really gotten to the point now that we hardly have anybody coming into the office. We have 2 people working in the kitchen. For the first week of December, we actually are also getting a new hot water heater at the senior center. So we have reached out to Texas Roadhouse, and they'll be helping us with meals for that.
Great. Thank you, Carla. Eliberto?
Well, I think Carla started to answer my question. I had a two-part question. I think Carla started answering the first one is, piggybacking on Karen's question about going to red. I was wondering if you were going to start up those relationships with Longmont restaurants again. It sounds like you are.
Yeah.
And the question is really around strategic goals. And I asked this of other agencies as well. I mean, you provided some really great programmatic goals, like around, the enhancing the food and all that kind of stuff. And I wonder if you have some like strategic goals around if they have some of your agency level strategic goals have changed because of COVID, and looking into 2021 around fundraising, around volunteer raising, any of those kind of goals that have those changed, and what do they look like?
You want me to go, Carla, or you?
You can do it. You want
Okay.
to start with fundraising?
Yeah, so right now we're not accepting new volunteers. It's just too hard, especially with going to Red. It's too hard to train somebody new. You kind of have to be able to stand next to them and show them the paperwork and the documentation and show them what it looks like. And we did that in the spring as well. And when we went back to normal 5 days a week, we lost some of our clients who, took it as an opportunity to retire or just weren't themselves comfortable with being that out in the public. And so we, this time we're anticipating that drop when we go back. And so anytime I do a press statement, I make it very clear, we cannot accept new volunteers right now, but please go and fill out a volunteer application right now, and we'll put you on our wait list. And as far as fundraising, yeah, it's a different world out here for fundraising right now. I think it's going okay, mainly because I will say that, as a development person, I'm really fortunate that everybody on staff does something to ensure, bringing in in-kind support or monetary support. Everybody at some point, every staff member has done something, and that really helps, and it kind of spurs new ideas and new ways to engage the public. So as far as maintaining it, so when I look over my grant sheet for this year, obviously most of the influx in grant money I'm seeing this year, most of that is COVID related. But there are a couple organizations that I'm hoping this opened the door. They were always ones that I felt they should have had a relationship with us before. And it was always just, there's always some reason or another why people don't return your phone calls. And so I'm really hopeful that some of the new foundations that have come forward during COVID, we can continue to have a regular relationship with. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Ann Baldwin?
Yes, you said you had 2 people in the kitchen. Does that,
yes.
How many people make all the meals?
It's the 2 people in the kitchen that are making it.
Wow.
So now that we can't have any volunteers in the kitchen, that has really changed things up a lot. So we have 2 individuals that do all the meals, and then the girls in the office have had to take on the duties of putting everything into routes, helping get all the routes out. Because we went from having numerous volunteers in the kitchen, we normally had about 4 a day, plus we had 3 employees, but right now we have 2 kitchen employees, and then everybody who's in the office are taking turns. So we're on a rotate. So if anybody was to get sick, we have certain people who never work together.
Wow, that's pretty impressive, all of it.
We actually have 2 office people who haven't been in the same room together since March.
Yes.
We treat them like the president and vice president.
Very nice. Other questions?
I don't have a question. I just like to make a comment, and that is to commend you ladies on what you're doing and what you've been doing for a long time. When Alberto and I were there pre-COVID, and you gave us a tour and I got to meet the volunteers and understand how they work. And then some have been there for more than 10 years. It's just amazing. So I just want to encourage you through this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that the lack of questions also reflects the completeness of your application as well as the general belovedness of your organization.
Great.
Well, thank you on both accounts. Thank you.
We're going to find something to create controversy about Longmont meals.
No, please don't.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I think we have just a little bit more time. I do have one question that's kind of like higher level. Do you ever do measures of kind of efficiency in regards to the cost to distribute a meal versus other outlets? And one of the things I noted was you have a metric that it's about half as much keeping somebody in their home this way costs half as much as a nursing center. But in regards to specifically the food element, have you found kind of benchmarks that you're able to use for cost versus benefit?
So I will say that, first of all, I believe in reporting our cost per meal as total revenue per number of meals served. I think it's the most transparent way of doing it. And not all Meals on Wheels, of course, do it that way, but Meals on Wheels America kind of uses that as their metric. And a report I saw at this year's conference, which was, of course, virtual, was that the average, I think it was $15 to $20 per meal, and we're at $6.50 to $7.50. So that blew my mind. And we do much better than that, first of all. And then, now this was some time ago, and Carla can speak more to the specifics of this. Before I was on staff, so about 7 years ago, the board did an analysis of if it was cheaper to purchase meals from an outside vendor or do any combination of kind of catered, pre-done meals and kitchen meals, and it was not even close.
That's very true. We were actually looking at cost, and then we were also looking at taste and all those type of things to just make sure that we were doing a really good job. And we did realize that the way we do it is great. Right now, with us using the help of the restaurants, they're doing their best to keep the cost down for us. So it is costing us a little bit more on some of those meals, but at the same time, since we are not having we have one less staff person in the kitchen, and we have a lot of other things happening, it seems to work out still really well cost-wise, and we're doing very good this year off of the food budget because of that.
Great. Do you use the Meals on Wheels America? Do they offer benchmarks for other kind of like best practices and things like that, procedural?
Yeah, so they're not a parent organization, but they are a research and lobbying organization, and they do they do a benchmark academic study of older adults and their nutrition needs annually. I think they pair it with the University of Kentucky, maybe Vanderbilt, somewhere in that area. And they do that annually, and so you can kind of get the metrics on the key reductions in medical problems that people have when they have daily nutrition, down to food insecurity, and they compare it to other cohorts. And so they're really important for that. But then also, as far as best practices, yes, they do put out best practices. And then also, just because of their purchasing power, they can kind of gather the best of the best as far as software and hardware and things like that. But they're not a parent organization. So it's still up to the local organization to be able to decide what works best in our local communities.
Great. Thank you.
And we ended our time.
All right.
It looks like Polly has a question.
Councilmember Christensen.
I just wanted to say thank you to both of you, Katie and Carla, because you're absolutely right about the way you're cooking them yourself, for the most part, is so much more nutritious. And there's no point in having a meal that's not actually a meal. And I know from having volunteered just a few times with you that you really do make an effort to prepare things that are tasty and very nutritious and balanced, and it's also much less expensive that way, as you observed. Yeah. So I really want to thank you for doing that. It is so much more work, though, and chopping up vegetables is work. But that's the only way you get them. Although you can buy them frozen and they're mostly chopped up too. But yeah, so thank you for balancing out the cost and the nutrition and all that. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight as well. And of course, you've heard how much gratitude there is for what you do. So thank you.
And we're gonna miss the home tour.
I
Very
know.
sad.
I know.
I
I know.
Next year.
And buy presents there.
We might have some leftovers for you, Karen. All right, thank you all. We appreciate all of you and all of what you do. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
So we actually got a couple minutes before 7:30. 1 minute, if anybody needs a bio break or anything.
I'm going to go grab some water.
All right, I'll wait till 7:30 to let them in.
Okay.
Hey, honey.
I'm gonna get some coffee.
We'll wait till Karen gets back to get started, Brian. I'll let him in as soon as she gets back from getting her coffee. Oh, and there she is. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and let him in.
Okay. Hey, Ken and Mark, can you hear us? All right, and you're on mute, Mark.
Hey, Brian.
There you go. Hey.
Me
All
too.
right. Well,
Can you
thanks.
hear me all right?
What's that?
Can you hear me all right?
Oh yeah, loud and clear. All right, we thank you for joining us. I'm the board chair of the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board, and just a couple things. One is because of the application of the farmers market in the same program area, I'm recusing myself from the actual questions, asking any questions. However, I will still be in my role of orchestrating questions from other board members.
All right.
So you'll still hear me. And we got 15 minutes Q&A. If there's any time left within the 15 minutes, you can use it to fill us in on anything we didn't ask about. And if you could start with an introduction for our board members, that'd be awesome.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and present. Looking at this lineup, I can tell you guys have already spent a ton of time, and I really appreciate your guys' service to Longmont. And we're Olin Farms. Kenna and I grew up on the farm here, and we're about 13 years in business. We are a CSA farm, and we do a lot of education programs and work with a lot of food access programs, and really are just here to try to build like similar goals with you guys. How do we make Longmont as healthy as possible? That's why we became farmers, is how do we make our community and our family as healthy as possible?
Great, thank you. Okay, opening questions for Mark. Karen Phillips.
Yeah, thanks for having the Olin Farms here in Longmont. You guys are great. I just, want to understand the farm stand bucks and how do you get them? What are the farms? What are those?
So the Farm Sandbucks is kind of a spin-off of a program that was called Veggie Bucks that Boulder County Health was partnering with the farmers market and getting these basically like printed farmers market bucks that these veggie bucks people take to the farmers market and go connect with farmers and get veggies there. And because kind of COVID and just the market's not being the same this year, the market kind of transitioned a lot of that. So we were trying to see how can we keep the idea of the veggie bucks and still getting out to talk directly to farmers could still be going on. So just brainstorming with Heather, we kind of been working with them many years on their ECE program, kind of since its inception, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and always just kind of brainstorm how to make it easier to access for the individual schools. So we would be running the veggie bucks. Like Heather would sign up the schools, the Boulder County Health registers the ECE schools, and then each of them would get like a $500 credit for the year. And the credit could be used at our farm stand, which we're hoping to open next year, given how COVID regulations go. And if they can't do it directly at our farm stand, we set up a virtual kind of field side farm stand where customers or these schools could order online and be able to come through and get their bags of groceries passed to them. So it'd be a program that we'd be adding, that we'd be administering that, and Boulder County Health would be the ones telling who's the participants are.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks. Additional questions? You know, this is one of those I can't fill in, so somebody's going to have to step up.
Well, I can ask another question.
All right. Well, so Karen Phillips, then Deanna, then Eliberto. Everybody was provoked.
Step up here. How do you recruit the 7 programs for the most vulnerable children?
You know, and that's part of the ECE program that, and Olin Farms ourselves aren't involved with the recruiting, but that's part of what Boulder County Health has set up through their early childhood education centers. And I'm not exactly sure what their process is for identifying this. I can tell just by being at these distributions for the last 2 to 3 years that I see a wide variety of diversity. And right now we're mainly Olin Farms is involved in the Boulder program, and that's kind of one of the reasons I was really excited to try to put in this application and then try to get Olin Farms more involved with Longmont. Like, we're a Longmont farm. I grew up here. And for the last 10 years, we've been working with farm to school programs with BVSD in Boulder, and then Boulder County Health through their ECE program in Boulder, and done some really innovative things and found some awesome ways to really work healthy food into these schools and education programs into these schools. But it's always been on Boulder County Health or the Boulder Valley School District. Those people have the systems and the team to really figure out who's the best recipients. And it kind of mirrors another program we did with Boulder County and City of Longmont this year for providing 70 CSA shares to low-income families. Like, it wasn't up to us to recruit it, but Boulder County Health worked with nonprofits in Longmont, and they recruited all these families. And so we rely on the county experts to do the recruiting for us.
Great, thanks for stepping up to Longmont.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And was it Caitlin or Deanna who had the question? Deanna?
So I just had a question. This is my first year on this board, so I think that you might be the first organization or group of people that I've participated in an interview on where there was no board of directors. So I'm also a business owner, so I can understand why you might not want to have a board of directors, but boards of directors sometimes do fundraising and can be instrumental in bringing in cash too. So I guess I was just curious a little bit about your thought process there, and if you've thought about expanding to have a board or not.
I really appreciate that question, and this is something that Ken and I and our accountant talked about a lot like a year and a half ago, and almost started like a nonprofit branch of Olin Farms, because we do so much education and we actually do a lot of like scientific carbon sequestration research that could fall under a nonprofit as well. And at the end of the day, we just decided that there's a lot of awesome nonprofits out there. Just look at the list of awesome nonprofits that you guys are interviewing. But the thing I think we're missing in this world is more businesses just doing the right thing. And most of our fundraising comes directly from our our constituents, like our customers. Like if we have we're planting trees at the farm, we have a tree fundraiser and people buy those trees and we plant them. So most of our fundraising we've been able to do without having to have the tax write-off kind of piece of it, just from the things that we're involved with. And really just because we're partners with so many different nonprofits and government organizations that this is one of the first times that we kind of are leading on the grant, maybe you could say, where a lot of times we're just supplying the veggies for these things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Alberto.
So, Mark, and I think you started to answer this question in your response around, being primarily in Boulder. But so when I'm looking at the strategic goals, and I'm just wondering what is the ultimate vision? By venturing into this, what type of goals are you expecting for the farm? What does it look like 5 years from now? I guess that's my question.
I'm really glad you asked that question, because this is what I really wanted. When I was thinking about this interview and this application, I mean, it's not just about getting $12,500 to supply this food. That's just the first piece. And that's just the first chain of events. And we have a term on the farm, when you're managing the ecosystem on the farm and trying to do everything financially feasible, where farms are pretty much nonprofits. We're all just like barely squeaking by. And the only way we're going to be sustainable and economically sustainable is if we stack functions on the farm. And every time we do something, it's not just doing it for one reason, it's doing it for 3 or 4 reasons. Maybe the waste product of that animal operation is fertility for our vegetables. You have to stack these functions in order to really be successful. I think it's a great metaphor for what cities and counties are dealing with COVID right now too. Like, we have limited funding. How can we spend a little bit to like really stack functions and have this balloon down the road? And that's why like the ECE program is so special to me and Kenna. Is we've done a lot of education programs from seniors all the way to these preschool to college level, and there's a certain couple critical points of influence that I see that really make a big difference. And that is that kind of early childhood education, that pre-kindergarten, where kids are first getting kind of out and exposed. And if you can connect them with farmers and gardening and healthy eating at that point, at the same that age, their parents are very receptive too. So we've, like, one school we did work with in Longmont like 10 years ago, partnered with a preschool, and we see those kids, like, they join the CSA and they'd continue with us for years and years. And some of those kids are actually becoming like high school interns on the farm right now. So that ECE age is so critical. And not only do we provide food for those preschools and those kids and those teachers, but what we've really seen in Boulder is it's really the staff at those schools are coming and they're talking to me and Kenna, and they're kind of understanding why this is important to eat healthy and build more resilience in the community through food. And if we can train as educators and get those parents used to it, that's how we can like really change the food system long run. So 5 years from now, like, I'd expect these families to be part, not all of them obviously, but there'd be some that would change their lifestyle and they'd be eating healthy throughout their time here in Longmont.
Karen?
So, Mark, I'm trying to understand, because we have funded the Boulder County Farmers Market and their ECE program, so to do kind of the same thing. So why do we need what your program if we're already funding the farmers market? So I'm trying to understand the difference, or why we would need 2 applications, even though there's farm stand bucks, there's veggie bucks, we got all kinds of bucks, but it's really about getting fresh produce to kids in an early childhood setting. So why did you put your hat in the ring, I guess?
Okay, yeah, and I'm not sure what the BCFM's applications were this year, but I know in the past they funded like CSA shares to get either delivered right to the schools, and then they also funded these veggie bucks, where the schools could come out to the farmers market and kind of mingle with the farmers, and kind of it gives them more options about what they want to buy instead of just a box that shows up every week. And both programs are great. Both programs are a way to get food there. But I think there's a real critical piece of that direct connection to a farmer. That we participated this in just through the CSA box in Boulder this year, and probably 30 of the schools got boxes delivered, and 20 of them actually came and picked up at our CSA distribution point. And I can tell you the relationships with those schools actually came out and saw me and Kenna every week and talked to us and heard about the vegetables and had that interaction with the farmer. Those relationships grew a lot deeper, especially with the faculty, the parents that were coming out. It's just, to me, it's critically important that kids and these faculty know who their farmer are, can actually go out and step on the land, are driving out to the farm. Like we grow food, but what we really are trying to do here is connect people back to the earth that is around them. And I think that direct connection to the farmers is a little different than what is the CSA delivered box is.
Thank you. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any additional questions?
We have about 3 minutes.
Okay. Mark, I don't see any. Alberto? Okay, go for it.
So Mark, and I really appreciate your application, and when you talk about, you know, farmers being nonprofits and the margins, but I was a little concerned, might be the word, around the no reserves statement you had in the reserve question. I'm just wondering, you know, we're all experiencing some tough times in COVID, and I'm just wondering what's the fallback? What's the support system that you have in these tough times? Because yeah, that was a little concerning. So, but I also understand what you said. You know, margins are tight.
Yeah. And wow, that's a big question to answer in 2 minutes. I'm going to go for it. So yeah, obviously it's been a tough year. We saw like 60% of our income disappear, and we had to reinvent ourselves this year. But we actually had our biggest production year and our biggest grossing year that we've had, and put us in a place where we're ready to actually build a little bit more infrastructure over the winter to support a bigger virtual drive-through and to reopen the farm stand in a safe way, that if we can get people directly on the farm in the farm stand, we are. I mean, the lack of reserves in farming is kind of a common thing, but this is actually, the COVID has been, there's never been a time where there's been more people looking for healthy food. So any farmers out there have never had a problem distributing their produce. It's just been a lot of extra expenses in labor, a lot of extra expenses in all the PPE equipment. And at the end, it balances out a little bit, but we're in a position where we're actually investing to grow next year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Karen, is there any time left? 1 minute. All right. Mark, it sounds like you've got a minute if you want to add anything else.
I just love Longmont, and I really appreciate it. I know how much time you guys have been spending on Zoom, and I totally appreciate that. And let's build a healthier community here. It definitely starts with the kids. Like they're the ones that are really going to shape and shift it.
Great.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Say hello to Kenna for us.
Will be.
See ya.
We are doing really well on time. There's 4 minutes before 7:50. We can let them in early, or we can wait till 7:50. I'll let you all decide.
Let's go ahead and just let them in early.
Let them in.
Let them in.
Let them in.
Who is it?
Growing Gardens.
So now there's another Growing Garden. So we'll figure it out here in a second. So Gianna, Olympia, and whoever Growing Gardens, are you all part of Growing Gardens?
I'm Vanessa Keeley here with Growing Gardens. I can change my screen name, and I need to put my
that would be great. I can rename you as well, but if you can do that, that would be great, just so we know who we're talking to.
Sure.
Vanessa, Annie, and Olympia. Yes, with Growing Gardens.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Brian. I'm the chair of the Boulder of the, what am I the chair of? The Housing and Human Services Advisory Board. That's what I am. That's right. And we have 15 minutes of Q&A. As you know, if there's any time left that we haven't used up, you're welcome to use it if you want to make comments or just share anything that you think we might want to know. And would you please start with introductions? And why don't we start with Vanessa and then go Annie and Olympia, because that's your order on my screen.
Sure. I see a lot of familiar faces here. My name is Vanessa Keeley. I'm the Executive Director of Growing Gardens. This is my 18th year now with the organization.
Thank you, Vanessa.
I'm Annie Carlozzi. I'm the Program Director. Maybe around 16 years with Growing Gardens.
All right, thank you, Annie. And Olympia?
I'm Olympia Mejia. I'm a board member of Growing Gardens, and this is my 3rd year.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, I'd like to open it up for questions from the board or staff. As we get later into the evening with these interviews, the hands shoot up a little slower.
And I think maybe Annie or Vanessa, you might want to mute until it's time to say something. We're getting feedback from somebody, so.
Eliberto, look like you put your hand up.
Yeah, and I've been asking this question a lot tonight. So I see some really great programmatic strategic goals in your answer around that first question in the agency piece. And I'd love to know if you have any, so a couple of questions. One, do you have any agency level goals around development or, board development, staff development, or fundraising? And then two, if you do, how have they been impacted by COVID and its realities?
So let me just restate that and make sure I know what you're asking. You're asking if we have any board or staff goals related to development, and then
well, no, more like, so what you shared with us, or when I read your answer, it feels like there's a lot of programmatic goals in there, and I'm just wondering if there's any agency specific goals, whether that be diversifying funding, whether is it board and staff development, so more around that level of goals is what I'm asking.
I see, I understand, thank you. Yeah, I think one of the most exciting things, and I can let Annie talk about this a little more, is with some of our educational programming being paused with COVID, with the schools being closed or not doing field trips, it's been a priority of our board that started a committee, and then a lot of our staff members have been working on it too, to do some justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion work. And Annie, do you want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing and what some of our goals are?
Sure. So we initially started with staff desire to work more within JEDI within the organization. So the education team has been doing a lot of training during this quote unquote no kid time when we're not on the farm. And we've been doing training with the National Association for Environmental Education, working historically, we've worked with Parker McMullen Bushman, who's from the Denver Botanic Gardens, but teaches across the country. And just really looking at, are we representing who we're serving, how we're trying to serve them? Are we able to meet them where they are, and really look at our structures within the organization, whether it be from the board level or staff level or within our education team, and really find those the gaps or our blind spots around JEDI to really make sure that we're being thoughtful about.
I know what JEDI is because I was just in a conference when somebody told me what JEDI is. So could you spell that out for our board, please?
Sorry, I have this bad habit of shortening things. So JEDI is Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So our board has set up a subcommittee to address justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, which includes our staff as well at this point. So we've done some initial training, just what do those words mean to our organization and on a national scale. And we've done training to get staff input on things that we think we're doing well and things that we would like to improve on and how we might get there. And our next step will be to bring that back to the board level and have a larger committee work around that and look at how it fits into our strategic plan.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Deanna.
So I just have a sort of practical question about how things work. So I know that you had indicated in your application that you like donate a lot of plant starts and you encourage people to grow their own food, and in particular targeting low-income individuals and trying to increase access there. I guess I'm just curious about like people who live in apartments, because a lot of people don't have access to land to grow their own food. Do you allow people to grow things on your farm, or what kind of outreach do you do to people who don't have access to a place to grow their own produce?
We have a number of different ways we do that. Growing Gardens started with the community garden in Boulder at our Hawthorne farm. And since that time, we've grown to have about 8 different community gardens spread throughout Boulder County. So our goal is that hopefully one of these community garden locations is accessible to people, hopefully close to where they live, so that they can garden, in their neighborhoods and somewhere that's close to where they are. And we have sliding scale for those plat fees. Normally the plat fees are right around, the top one is right around $100, but we have free plats for people who request it and also reduced rate plats for people who request it. And then we also, at our Longmont farm, we've done, we have some different beds that we've put in on one side of it that we've had different community groups come in and garden in those specific beds, as well as a few different individuals. That we haven't had a whole lot of individuals gardening on that site, especially this past year, but we have the infrastructure to have some people even on that site too.
And I'm gonna follow up with this. We were able to do, when we give some donations, I've been part of the physical donation of them, and we have been giving also like small pots, which families really appreciate, just the small, and then you see them in even if they have a small yard.
Thank you, Olympia. And Karen, I think you beat Eliberto's hand by about half a second. So Karen and then Eliberto.
That's my goal. So, so you talked about community, basically community gardens, but you've gotten out of the community garden business in Longmont. So tell me about why some you're still supporting and why you're no longer supporting 2 of the Longmont community gardens, which I'm responsible for trying to figure out who is going to be picking that up. So, so I'm a little concerned that I heard you're still supporting some community gardens, but you have you've gotten out of you pretty much announced to us that you're out of the business for the Longmont community garden support. And then is the Longmont farm still the why, or is that okay? All right. So, what's up?
Yeah. So Annie, do you want to talk about this?
Sure. Yeah, so we contract with the city of Longmont, or have historically, to manage 3 community gardens. I don't feel like we have, we're still working with them to try and transition them to a new manager. We won't be managing them moving forward. So Alta
my question is the why, because you're, why question mark, because you are still supporting, it sounds like you're still supporting other community gardens.
Yep.
And why did you stop supporting the Longmont one?
Yep. So we last year we looked at the community garden program. We've been looking at it for quite a long time. It takes an immense amount of staff time in regards to how many people were able to serve out of those gardens, and we evaluated partnerships, locations, how well they're going, etc. And we identified 3 different partners that weren't working very well, and really looked at what we could do to support those gardens to be more successful. So that was Holiday Garden in North Boulder, the Kerr Community Garden, which was a partnership with Boulder County Open Space, and then the 3 gardens in Longmont. Our local contacts within the community gardens for Longmont, Susan and Carmen, have been fantastic and do as much as they can. But the reality is they don't get the support that they need from the rest of the city staff. So if there is issues with trash on site, it doesn't get addressed. There's a large population at the 11th Avenue that has been troublesome in terms of vandalism and camping near that site, and has created some unsafe situations. And there are so many pieces to that puzzle before we can actually take action to address something, that we decided that it would be much better to find a more localized model. Most community gardens across the nation are from a ground up standpoint, where people within the community are managing those gardens rather than this top down model, which is how we manage all of our gardens. So we're really looking at how can we shift that within all of our garden sites to make them more localized and community managed. So we're currently still working with Carmen and Susan to help them through that transition once a new partner is identified.
Great. Thank you, Annie.
Mm-hmm.
Alberto?
That was my question.
Okay. Other questions?
I guess I need to add a comment. You know, it just seems like if we were a troubled community garden, that there would have been some opportunity to address some things. So if you're saying that they're not getting adequate city support, I don't know. So some things just aren't making a lot of sense to me, but that's not for this time. So that's for a follow-up conversation. So, but thank you for explaining.
So we did stay on as a management partner for an extra year from the moment when we decided to look at new partnerships for those gardens. And so we have stayed on this year to try and help with the stability of that situation.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Can I add something a little bit to that, Brian, too? One of the things that our board and staff are really looking at is what are we really good at as an organization? And one of our answers are we're really good at education, and we're really good at connecting people to their food sources and providing education to understand why local food's important, how to understand why nutritious food is important for your body. And we really wanted to shift some of our efforts more into what we're really good at, and that's that more of an educational role. What we wound up doing, or what we do wind up doing in our community garden program, is a lot of conflict resolution, and it's not necessarily one of our strengths. So we were getting into situations that we really weren't able to navigate really well, and we wanted to focus our efforts on the kind of the pieces that we felt like we were doing really well with.
Great, thank you, Vanessa. Alberto?
So shifting gears a little bit, I was a little bit confused about on the agency budget side. In your narrative, you talk about anticipating a deficit, but when I look at the budget, the actual table, there is no deficit. So if you could just explain that a little bit. Like, I read that you got the PPE that helped. You've had some other CARES funding. So I'm just wondering a little more about, are you anticipating a deficit, or are you not?
We are not expecting a deficit for this year. This fiscal year, we're looking with all of our projections like we're going to be fine. What we're worried about a bit more is heading into next year. We have a lot of our educational program does also bring in some revenue for the organization, and some of our bigger events on the site, like farm to table dinners and things like that, bring in revenue for us. And with the current restrictions, we're just not really sure what those are going to look like. In 2020, we were able to bring in about $105,000 in COVID relief specific funding. And that's also something we're really unclear whether that's going to continue, or whether that kind of pool of funding is going to dry up. So what we're hoping as an organization is to do well with our year-end fundraising and put ourselves in a position where we'll have a bit of a cushion with some extra funding from this year that we could hopefully take into next year for the deficit that we're projecting.
Okay, I was just wondering because there is no deficit projected in your budget.
I can look back at that and maybe point that out. I know with some of these budgets, things have been shifting daily with what we're projecting. So I need to look back and see when I wrote this one and what I think is different now.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Vanessa. Karen Phillips?
I just have a question on where do you have your classes and how, especially how to cook, and where does the education take place?
We do just a lot of stuff outside on the farm. We have a little structure that's called a loafing shed. So it's got like 3 sides on it and then the big front of it's open. We have some tables that we set up in there to do our educational classes. I think we've also done some stuff inside the Y as well. They have a big like conference room sort of set up that we can go in and do some stuff inside.
And the majority of the things happen, of course, in the summer. So it's there's a couple times that we put out. So it's hard to see it right now. And of course, with restriction, 2020 wasn't a normal year. Just as simple as that.
Yeah, thank you.
That was Beulah the buzzer.
Oh, that was, okay.
That was.
Great. Well, thanks again for joining us and making the time to answer these questions. And I was hoping to have time to ask you about your school programs, but
You probably have some time, Brian.
sorry?
You probably have some time. We're a little ahead, so if you want.
You said the buzzer went off.
Well, it did go off. I'm just saying. You're the chair. You can do what you want.
I've got an Austrian mother.
Yeah, we got about 6 minutes before
buzzer
for the next
goes
group.
off, and that's so actually just a real quick question. Your school programs, have you been able to engage the kids in a way that you feel good about given the situation with the education this year?
Trying. We're doing our darndest. So this spring, as soon as the shutdown happened, our education team shifted very quickly into trying to gather as much information as we could from teachers that had the capacity to talk to us, which wasn't very much. So a lot of just organizational gathering of information and trying to share whatever we could. So we were able to produce online content in the spring, which was simply, in the spring, it was just videos of our instructors on the farm doing what we would typically do if we had kids at the farm. And we just pushed those out as much as we could as just free resources to teachers. And then over the course of the summer, we created 40 different online videos, which include activities, videos, and then also follow-up things for kids to do on their own and additional resources for families or teachers to dig deeper into topics. And those range anywhere from honeybees to edible parts of a plant to, maintaining gardens and farms, doing a virtual tour of the farm, etc. And then we've partnered with the e-movement to provide some of that programming for free. All the programming we offer in Longmont is free for participants. So we are working with Timberline currently to try and share that with the pre-K through 7th graders there. And they're very excited to implement that into their fall programming, which is really exciting to us. We've done very little in-person programming due to size restrictions and so much of our education focus shifting to production. But we have high hopes of returning in the spring. But we have programming that we've created that will be available to be used throughout the year, whereas usually we cut off at the end of October. So, and it's also allowed us to increase our reach to people that might not otherwise have an opportunity to come to the farm.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you again for being here. I know the farm's getting some rest. I hope that you all have a chance to do the same.
Before we go, I have one question that is totally off subject, and it's for Olympia. Olympia, were you with I Have a Dream Foundation at any time? Okay.
I'm
thought
still with I Have a
recognized-
Dream Foundation. Yes, I'm also, you'll see me, I'm really involved. I love the Longmont community, all about Longmont. And so I work with I Have a Dream and I'm also a part of the board, member of the
Awesome.
board of Growing Gardens. So trying
Oh.
my best to be involved as much as possible.
Well, great. You were doing a great job back then. Olympia always brought about 40 to 45 kids or more and to actually participate in our Dr. ML King celebrations. And they would bring them and we got them involved and we actually formed a choir. It was just an awesome time. I thought I recognized you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna throw like literally 15 more seconds. I think one of the most important parts of our work right now with Growing Gardens is especially that, like the lack of COVID just kind of put everything in a hole. So I'm really hopeful that 21 could bring everyone out in the most helpful way, in the most healthy way. So I think Growing Gardens could potentially will be supporting not only our younger students, our teenagers that right now that I'm working with them, and these are critical times for them to switch in that, and also our adults provides an avenue for them not only to meet other people, but to like gardening is always therapeutic. Anyway, so just wanted to toss that in.
All right, thank you, Olympia. All right, thanks so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
All right, so we got quite the group from Calvary Open Door.
Have they applied before?
No, they've not. They're another brand new agency. And just to clarify one thing, and then this is my fault, in the document it says self-sufficiency and education skill building. These are really, I mean, that was me. That was my own brain conversation. They're really self-sufficiency. We've always labeled English language as self-sufficiency, not education and skill building. I want to make that clear. That was me and Nicole communicating and me not clarifying before she put that together. So just want to make sure that the board understands that there's not a different priority area. I just in my head thinking stuff and I forgot to finalize it with Nicole before she put this together. So
Alberto, I can't even imagine what happens in your head. And
I just had a question. Last year we had an agency that was from Mountain States, I think it was, and they were religious based. And I'm trying to think, I think you said something, Karen, about.
So I think it's the difference. So we've certainly funded faith communities.
Okay.
It's really about is religion part of the service? I mean, so that you have to, if that's,
right.
yeah. So
Yeah,
if that's a requirement,
to go to Bible study.
Right. If that's a requirement, then that would not be something eligible for funding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are you ready?
we're ready.
All right.
Open the gates.
So, phone number, if you can tell me your name, I'd be happy to change your name. I have a phone number, 720, last three digits, 487. You're muted right now. I think it's star, oh, I forget the number piece. Is it star 6?
Star 6.
That would unmute you. All right. So if you,
Okay, hi, this is Arlinda Breeds.
all right, I'm gonna go ahead and change your name. Can you tell me how to spell your name?
Last name is Breeds.
And the first name, did you say Linda?
Yeah, Arlinda
Arlinda.
with an A. Yeah,
I'm just gonna do
A-R-L-I.
Linda.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna do like that.
Got you. Thank you. And Susan and Barbara, anybody who has video, if you can turn on your video, it's always helpful for us.
And I'm wondering, Arlinda, is that there is an A Breeds as well? Is that you?
That is me. I'm trying to figure out if I have a webcam on this computer.
Okay. All right. Good. So there's only 3 people. You're just there twice. Okay. Good to know.
Okay.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm Brian, the chair of the Human Services, Housing and Human Services Advisory Board. I'm going to write that down so I can say it more eloquently in the future. We have about 15 minutes for Q&A, and essentially the board members and staff will be asking questions, give you the opportunity to provide answers, typically clarification on the applications. And if we have a little time left over, you're welcome to share anything you feel we'd benefit from knowing as well. And the first thing that would be really helpful is introductions. So to avoid all of you waiting to see who's going to talk first, I'll just see if maybe we can go Barbara, Susan, and then Arlinda for introductions. Great.
My name is Barbara Ulrich, and I am the director of Open Door.
Thank you, Barbara.
Mhm.
Okay, my name is Susan Ramchi, and I'm coordinating the high school equivalency program for Open Door.
Great, thank you. And Arlinda?
And my name is Arlinda Breeds, and I am the bookkeeper / finance reporting volunteer.
Wonderful. Thank you, Arlinda. Okay, do we have any opening questions for this application? Deanna?
I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about how COVID has impacted the demand for services over the last 8 months, and whether you've had to pivot and make changes in terms of how you provide those services. Are you using, Zoom classes, and is that effective? Yeah.
Yeah, COVID has had a huge negative influence on us. First of all, we used to have as many as 80 students in each session, which is usually 7 to 8 weeks. And right now we only have less than 20. And also our English classes that we offer, we had to move those online for virtual learning. And a lot of our students do not have adequate materials, computers, Wi-Fi, all of that. Some of them try to use their phones, but it just didn't work. So unfortunately, a lot of students are not able to take what we are offering. That's the biggest impact that we have had. The staff, the HISET staff teaches to the curriculum, so they can't get creative. They have to teach to the test, so to speak. However, the English department, we had to get very creative. We actually designed our own curriculum. So we spent a good 6 to 7 weeks designing an online curriculum, which was called project-based learning. And so it was a lot of time and effort on the instructor's part to be able to put together a program for our students. And even at that, we still had very low enrollment.
Thank you, Barbara. Eliberto, please.
That's a good caveat, or a good segue to my question, because when I look at your agency budget, maybe Susan can answer this. you know, when I look at the agency budget, the grand majority of revenue for the organization is coming from those tuition. And so I guess, two questions that I have. One is, you know, given what's happening, do you have any strategic goals or any goals for 2021 around diversifying funding, or, you know, or what strategies do you have to survive this pandemic as an organization? And then two, really is, you know, how do you plan to re-engage those students, right? Because they make up the bulk of your funding, you know.
Yeah.
And my understanding is, I'm trying to think about the result. I don't think you have tons of reserves. I think the Calvary kind of steps in when needed, but a lot of faith communities are not being able to step in right now because they have their own financial struggles. So just all that stuff wrapped into those questions.
Well, I will tell you, a couple years ago, Calvary asked us to be self-sustaining, so we have made every effort to do so. And one of the things that we have done for the several years now is we look at the end of the 7-week period that for each of our classes, what do we have to do? Do we have to make any changes to be able to keep surviving? So this is an ongoing issue. Given what has happened now with COVID, first of all, it is our goal to actually decrease the tuition, which would mean that we would have a decrease of tuition. And again, it would be a session by session. Worst case scenario is we'd have to cut out classes. If we don't have enough money to do what we need to do, we have to cut out classes. And another example of that is previous to COVID, we were offering 8 classes, and from August to October, we only had 1 class. And then from October to December, we offered 3 classes. So the number of classes that we offer depends on enrollment and money funds. Now, I will say one more thing that we did is we try to think outside the box and do some fundraisers. We've tried a number of them, but some did not work, some did. In August, we had a yard sale, and there we raised enough money so that, if you notice, I said from October, December, we had 3 classes, and we were able to provide that. Plus, our high-set testing center, that's really a big expense that we have. And if we don't have the funds to offer 2 test hours, we only offer 1 test hour, or we don't offer any test at all. So with the fundraising that we did and some donations that we got, we were able to offer from August to December 4 classes, 2 testing dates of 2 hours each. And that was all through fundraising and donations.
Thank you, Barbara. Other questions? I was wondering, go ahead, Karen, and then I'll go. Okay, all right, I'll go. So this started in 2015. What was the provocation to start this program?
Good question, actually. To make a long story short, I have a background of working with the second language learners in Boulder County. And when Front Range did away with their ESL program, I had some individuals come to me, students and other community members, and ask if we could start an academic English program. Our program is academic, it's not life skills, which means we prepare students for college or more enhancement job skills. So we started that. That's what really started the ball rolling. I knew that we needed something, but I had no idea the need that's out there. It's huge.
Great, thank you. Karen, did you have a question? Karen and then Caitlin.
I did, and it's similar, Brian, to what you just asked. So, so I was trying to understand and differentiate between the classes and the education that you provide as compared to intercambio, and I think it's certain that answer is the academic versus
So,
real life, for lack
yeah.
of a better word. But I think the other thing is that also at that same time frame in 2015, you know, the El Comité also picked up the mantle to provide you know, ESL classes, and so it seems like you were both trying to meet a need at the same time. So there's, I just wonder how you all are coordinating, how you differentiate what you're providing from the other education, the ESL programs that are here.
So in the field of ESL, there are 7 levels.
Right.
And level 1 is like basic survival skills, and level 7 is college prep. Open Door starts at level 4. If a student comes in, all of our students are tested upon entering the program, and the tests that we use are national so that we are the same as all the other states and the colleges. If the student is below level 4, we actually recommend them to go to Intercambio.
Okay.
Intercambio and us are partners with each other. And when a student goes to Intercambio and they really need a higher level of learning, more academic, Intercambio refers them to us. So we work really well as a partner with each other.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will like to add to that, Intercambio and I get together every year to talk about what are you doing and what are you doing. So for instance, they do the citizenship classes and we do the GED HiSET classes. We realize that we can't do everything, so we try to divide and conquer. They do the life skills and we do the academic.
So Brian, I do have a follow-up. So you mentioned in your application that you had started to train the R Center to do high school equivalency programs or classes. So I realize, you know, most everything changed when we got this virus. But so what was the R Center's interest? So tell me about how that partnership got started and what you all hoped to accomplish by that.
Okay. Well, first of all, our HiSET program is Spanish speaking only. And there's a huge need for English speaking. And we just don't have the space or the staff to do that. So our center had heard from a lot of people in the community the need, and so they proceed to move forward, got in touch with the HiSET organization, the national office, and that office sent them to us and said, go check out Open Door and see how they're doing it. So the way we will be working with each other is they will be offering the English and we will be offering the Spanish.
Got it. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Caitlin, and then Anne.
Hi, thanks for being here. I think I'm a little bit confused about some of the financial information included in the application. Specifically, I see 2 different references to 2021 program revenue, one that lists 37,500 and another that lists 19,500, which is a fairly significant difference. And then there's a chart that specifically asks what City of Longmont funding will be used for, and it looks like that is actually the total program revenue versus what the City of Longmont funding is being used for. I wonder, I don't necessarily expect that you can rattle off the information, but I wonder if after this we could get confirmation of what that revenue looks like and where the City of Longmont funding is intended to go, just so that we have accurate information, because it doesn't seem to reflect what I think you're trying to get, and I'd like to be able to make sure that we actually have that.
First of all, I'll be honest with you, I was very confused about those questions because it was not worded exactly the same, and I am not a grant writer. And since doing that application, I have found a grant writer, and I explained some of the challenges that I had of the questions. And but yeah, I was challenged with those questions, and not only was I challenged, but it wasn't in the same packet. You know, there were several packets, and it seemed like the next packet they worded it a little different. So I thought maybe they're asking for something a little bit differently. So, but our proposed budget for 2021, it was right about that 37,000, and so our previous, and the reason why it increased was because our program has gotten so much larger that we need to get more staff. I need an ESL coordinator, a HISET coordinator, and I will stay the director position. And so there's other positions that we added to the payroll, which is why it increased.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I think if we can just get a sense of, like, you know, sort of top line budget items and some of the anticipated use of that would be great. Definitely, not being a grant writer, Eliberto, I don't know if you can help us make sure.
I think Eliberto can follow up.
Yeah, I can follow, because I can actually open up the, and Robin, you and I can set up a time to talk. I can actually open up the application again and help you fill out that. It is confusing, but yeah, there's a way to put everything in the right place.
That's why I asked Arlinda to be in this meeting, because she's a whiz with the finances. I'm not a finance person, and so she's the one that will take care of that.
But just to clarify, you are the one, you are asking for 5,000, right? That's the correct number.
Yes.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Anne?
Yes, I think Karen asked this, but I don't know if you responded. What's the difference between your program, Intercambio, and then El Comité's classes?
Well, in a nutshell, El Comité and Intercambio are life skills. We're academic. So we start at level 4, Intercambio starts at level 1. And basically, most of their students at Intercambio are between 1 and 4. And when they're ready for more academic job enhancement or college prep, they come to us.
And then El Comité just does their own classes, life skills classes, the lower level?
Life skills, yes, very low. In fact, El Comité really only works with levels 1 and 2. They have very few classes, and they just work on the life skills.
I think we're...
So Brian Beulah, the buzzer did go off, just sharing.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to squeeze in one question. How do you know if you're winning? What's the, you know, what's your measure for we did it this year versus we got to work harder?
Well, there's two parts of that. The finance part is balancing the budget, but the other part, as to continuing on, do we really want to keep doing this, is the students. The students, the graduates we've had in HISET, the ESL students that have gone on to college and graduated. 4 of our staff members are former students. They come back and they teach, and or hold other capacities. The biggest form of advertisement, if you will, is networking. Students tell their friends about us. I'd say 90% of our students come from their friends. And so that is huge. And the enrollment, we keep breaking records. Like I said, we have gotten so large that we need to make more jobs.
Thank you.
So Brian, just FYI, you had mentioned earlier about students not having access to some of the technology that they need. So I just want to let you know that our Longmont Public Library is now they have, you can check out hotspots. So they have 30 hotspots that would be available for checkout. So for folks that are needing access to internet services. And then we also are in the process of purchasing Chromebooks that are also available for checkout at the library. FYI, stay tuned, and you can contact me if you want more information.
The library is actually one of our partners too, and we've done things with them. But yeah, that's really, they're wonderful.
Yeah.
They're just awesome. Thanks for making that note.
Yep.
Great. Well, Barbara, Susan, and Arlinda, thank you so much for joining us and for doing the work that you do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
And if I could get Alberto, if you and I could connect, I can get that financial information filled out accurately for you.
Yeah, I'll email Barbara. She can connect us.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks, Arlinda.
No problem.
All right, our last group is Intercambio, and there's 4 of them. Another big group. Finishing off with big groups. All right, I'm admitting them.
Welcome.
Hey.
How are you, Lee?
Brian, what are you doing here?
Well, they just let me in to, I don't know why, honestly.
Bad move, whoever let this guy in.
To try to figure out what your role is and the name of the advisory board you've been serving on for 4 years.
Yes, I'm going to write that down right now. Housing, Human Services. I've been messing that one up a little bit later in this evening.
Been a struggle.
It's been a struggle for sure. Sylvia and Carolina, do you have video?
I do now.
Sorry, yeah, I can turn on my video. Just give me a second.
It's just helpful for us to evaluate the integrity of your answer.
Okay.
Our facial recognition software, it's, you know. All right, we'll go ahead and get going here. So thank you for joining us. I am the chair of the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board, and we have 15 minutes of Q&A for the board members and staff to get clarification on your application. If there's any time left over inside that 15 minutes, it's open to you to share anything you feel we would benefit from knowing. And the first thing that we will all benefit from is introductions. So I'm going to ask if we go Lee, Erica, Carolina, and Sylvia. That's the order on my screen, and that way we know who goes next.
All right. I'm Lee Shanis. I'm the director of Intercambio and one of the co-founders, and we're in our 20th year.
Great. Thanks, Lee.
Good to see some of you.
You too. Erica?
Hi, I'm Erica Carlson. I'm the Grants and Evaluation Manager at Intercambio. I'm going into my 6th year at Intercambio, which is kind of exciting. Or 7th? I don't know. Time flies.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then is it Carolina or Carolina? Oh, you're on mute.
Unmute me. Carolina.
Carolina
Beach. And I am a board member and a teacher volunteer with Intercambio. And my first year as the board, and I think it's the 2nd year teaching, although I've taken a little bit of a back seat with the COVID.
Yeah.
On the
Right,
teaching.
And Sylvia.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Sylvia Romero Solis. I work as the bilingual reporter for the Longmont Leader in Longmont, and I've been involved with Intercambio for about, I would say 3 years. About 3 years, started as a committee member and have just recently joined the board this year. And so I participate as I'm currently the secretary and will be co-chairing the equity committee moving forward. Thank
Terrific.
you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open it up for questions from board members or staff. Well, the first question I would ask is, Sylvia, Carolina, and Erica, you know that you're working with Lee, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure this is a willing relationship. Eliberto.
I've asked this question a lot this evening, so to the board members, it might sound like a broken record. But in your answer around the strategic goals, I mean, there were some pretty awesome strategic programmatic goals. But I'm wondering, Lee and Erica and the board, you know, due to COVID, has that impacted any of your strategic goals that were more on focus on agency development, whether that be fundraising or marketing, or, you know, any of those goals, were they impacted, and have they been modified or changed to respond to the realities of COVID?
Yeah. Erica, you want me to take it? All right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's totally shifted our revenue kind of in general. I guess I'll talk about that first. So, I mean, before this, we were on a path where we launched a new curriculum in January, and our curriculum sales nationally were like on the rise. And now that a lot of programs nationally have paused or closed, to, you know, altogether, those curriculum sales have started going down for now. Fundraising locally has kind of remained the same. You know, we're not doing fundraising events, but we're still reaching out to individuals, and that has been more stable than we anticipated. There's little ups and downs. Foundations have, some foundations have stepped up more than we expected, so that's been a little bit stable. Our registration fees have pretty much gone away because we're not charging nearly as much for online classes as we do for in-person classes, which is still not a lot. It's still $20 to $30 a term on average. But one new exciting revenue possibility is we're launching a new online platform to connect volunteers and students anywhere in the country. And there's huge potential for this. We've been piloting it for the last couple months, and now we're developing a new software. And we think that this could be our biggest revenue source moving forward. We just did some revenue projections for this, and we've got some different scenarios, and some of them put us at a profit of $1 million a year after 3 years, because there's just thousands of people who could be connecting in this way, and there's just a big demand for that. So that's kind of the newest strategy around you know, revenue and fundraising. But I think our overall strategy is like not rely on one source, but have a couple of different you know, what do you call it? Irons in the fire. So, you know, we're counting on our curriculum sales to go back up as other programs around the country start up again. We're hopeful that this platform could be super successful, and we're going to continue, you know, applying to foundations and government and individuals. And then marketing, yeah, I mean, marketing is really just kind of shifted. We're going to be putting some energy into marketing this platform because there's just a lot of potential, and it's a broader reach. But our marketing is going to hit people in, you know, in Boulder County and beyond.
Great, thank you. And Erica, you wanted to add something?
Oh, just if we're talking about students and like our specific Longmont programs, and we are thinking, and this is reflected in the proposal, kind of a smaller number of students next year. However, you know, we budget and plan like on a fiscal year, which is July to June. So we're kind of thinking about that time period. I know you guys fund on the calendar year. So, you know, we're trying to be real careful not to overpromise, like, oh, we're going to have 550 Longmont students like we have in the past. That could still happen next year if this vaccine comes and there's in-person classes again. We have seen a drop. You know, a lot of people have really enjoyed the online classes, but some haven't been able to attend. So we are thinking, you know, more like 250 students next year. But, you know, I like to underpromise and overdeliver. So hopefully it'll be a lot stronger. And the platform can also, because it allows people to connect anywhere. People who maybe couldn't even make it into a, you know, class could be attending classes through that with a teacher from anywhere. So it really expands our opportunities for bringing in money, but also serving the community in different ways.
Thank you, Eric.
We've always had a long list of one-on-one students in Longmont, because an issue has always been we have lots of volunteers in Boulder and lots of students in Longmont, and these volunteers in Boulder aren't willing to drive twice a week to teach. So this platform solves that problem, where we have 100 people in the waiting list in Longmont. Those folks could take classes, not necessarily with Longmont people, but with people anywhere in the country. So that's kind of our hope. And we have, we're starting with a strong network in Boulder County of students. And so that's, where we think the platform is going to really have the most impact. But it's also, we have people in San Francisco who have students in Nebraska, and teachers in Arizona who have students in Florida. So there's also kind of that exciting possibility as well.
Great. Other questions? I've got a couple real quick, and they're totally unrelated from each other. So PPP loan, has it been forgiven?
Not yet.
Okay, but the application's in. Have you been able to? Okay, cool.
Yes.
And digital divide, how is that going to impact your customer base, client base rather?
Yeah, so it's huge for us. So like 90% of the 400 students who've pivoted to online classes have never taken an online class before. So the amount of energy it takes our staff to get one person prepared for online classes has been a lot more than it's taken to get one person into in-person classes. That being said, there's extra benefits that happen from that, because they get digital skills, they get the comfort, connecting on Zoom, knowing, managing the computer. And this is stuff that a lot of parents need to know, for their kids these days. So we're not just teaching English now, it's also kind of guiding people through the technology world. A lot of students are still using their phones, but, we're hopeful that more and more people get on devices. But yeah, it's obviously huge. Karen, Roni.
Hi, it's great to see you.
Good to see you.
So following up on Brian's question, so I just wanted to let you know that the Longmont Public Library is launching a couple things. So they have been able to purchase, I think, 80 hotspots
cool.
that folks can check out. And we are also starting to, probably before the end of the year, because we have to use CARES money, but that we also will be able to check out Chromebooks. So, so if that helps with any of your students to address their digital divide needs, the hotspots are available now. You can check those dudes out, and the Chromebooks will be coming on probably late this year, first part of next year. So
yeah, that's awesome.
FYI.
That's great. Yeah, the internet access has been, for the most part, well taken care of, at least from what we heard from the cities and the school districts. And it's pretty, we anticipated that was going to be a huge barrier, but it's one of the smaller barriers. Still a barrier. But.
All right. Other questions? Oh, Deanna's going to jump in and fill some space for us.
Right, so I'm going to ask a really well thought out question. I'm actually just going to borrow somebody else's question from a prior interview tonight and ask you if you could explain a little bit how your classes differ maybe from, say, Calvary or El Comité, and how maybe your services work in tandem, or if there's any overlap.
All right. Yeah, Karen's heard this question, I think, 18 times now. Over the years, but it's
we had a new player this year. We had Calvary. That was new.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think my answer is usually, there are some similarities, and there are some differences. There's the English language component of it. Intercambio is, our focus is a combination of English language and connections in the community. So all of our teachers are volunteers. Our curriculum is very focused on not just teaching the language, but really the mutual learning that happens in the classes, because we feel like it's equally important for the volunteer community to be expanding their cultural perspectives as well. And that's something that we've been kind of promoting more in the adult education world. We're getting an article published in an adult education journal about shifting the power imbalance in adult education. And that's really kind of about that, not just assimilating people and teaching people, and not necessarily that's what those programs are about, but we focus very strongly on really shifting biases, shifting cultural perspectives, and building that stuff into the curriculum, not just teaching, the standardized test language that people need to pass, certain tests or things like that. Or, we teach grammar, vocab and all that, but the focus is really on conversation and getting to know each other and sharing our stories and our experiences. And so that's, we don't receive state or federal funding, which is a beautiful thing. It allows us the freedom to really do that community building work.
Also, I was just going to note that the Longmont 2017 Human Services Needs Assessment showed 2,000 people in Longmont were seeking English support. We may have 500-600 on a good year, and I don't know, El Comite, a few hundred maybe. There's room for all of us to be doing this work. There's lots of need out there, and people come to us for different reasons. Some people might come to us because there's a particular aspect they're looking for. They want someone to come to their home to teach them English. They might come to El Comite because of other work they're doing there, or the community they find at Calvary or whatever. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's plenty of need.
Thank you, Erica. Karen Phillips.
Yeah, I was just wondering, do the volunteers that teach English, do they have to speak Spanish to be a volunteer to teach?
Nope. No, we have students from 65 countries, so we don't expect any volunteer to speak 40 languages.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Do you get enough volunteers then from Longmont to teach?
We have for the group classes recently. We've really, in the last few years, we've expanded the number of group classes. And what we've found is we've been getting just the same volunteers coming back over and over again, which is the key, because recruiting and training new volunteers every semester is not sustainable. But we have this core that we've built the last several years that they just keep coming back, and they're awesome and they get better. And that's allowed us to offer more group classes and have better group classes and see better retention. We do, like I said, still have a pretty long waiting list for one-on-one classes, and we don't even promote those in Longmont anymore because we don't have enough volunteers for that. But again, hopefully the platform is something that can balance that supply and demand.
What kind of qualifications? What kind of qualifications does a volunteer need to have to teach?
Carolina.
Oh, I was going to, well, in terms of qualifications, from a personal perspective, in terms of teaching the students, it's really just the passion and the need or the desire to want to help them learn a different language. It's very rewarding. So I think Intercambia provides you a really thought out and a very good outline in terms of how to teach the class, what step to teach it. So even if you have no teaching skills ability to do it, I mean, they pretty much outline it for you, how to even start the class, what to ask, what conversations to talk about, and then they give you a lot of support. But in terms of your question was, do you have to know the language? I do speak Spanish, but when I do teach these classes, I encourage them to ask me in English. I teach kind of like a little bit of a mid to advanced, because if I speak to them in their language, then we kind of, I guess, not helping them understand that it's okay, just keep trying, we'll get through it. And they get more comfortable, more confident. Even though I can understand it to them in Spanish, I ask them to ask me in English so that they can keep practicing and practicing. And I think by the end of the term of the last couple classes that I've taught, students have gained a lot more confidence by having to force themselves, I guess, for lack of better words, to speak in English. So.
Yeah.
Well, I just think I have some friends that would be interested in doing that, so I'll have to pass it along.
Yeah, it's super fun. And another thing we do that people can join easily, which is another thing that's kind of unique about Intercambio, is we engage the broader community. So in the middle of every term, we have what we call community conversations, where we bring in 30 to 40 volunteers in person or online now, and we pair them up with students, and they do like speed dating conversation practice, and it's super powerful. So you talk to a student or two for 15 minutes, and then you rotate and talk to another pair of students for 15 minutes, and then you do it again. And it's just a way to get people in the community getting to know each other, talking to each other. It builds the students' confidence. Once volunteers do that, they start getting more engaged with our program, because they're just blown away by how fun and rewarding and important it is to do that. I got my mom in Maryland to do the last one because it's all online now. And her comment was like, these teachers are volunteers. Like, I would think you're paying them $1 bazillion because they're so good. And that's like, a lot of our teachers could be getting paid to do this, but they love it. It's just like they built it into their lives, which is really cool.
Thank you.
Bueller the buzzer went off, Brian.
Come on, Brian, keep us on task here.
Well, Lee, I mean, come on. How can I do that when you're in the middle of saying something?
Important.
Something important. Well, thank you for making it. And, if there's one thing we've learned recently in recent history, it's that we all can stand to be much better communicators. So thanks for the work you do and making us that.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for your support over the years and for all you do. And for doing this at 8:30 p.m.
But we're at home,
That's true. I know.
It's quite comfy.
Yeah.
I can remember dragging through snowstorms to get to these meetings sometimes. But this is much better, isn't it?
We might never go back to in person. I don't know.
And good luck with that online piece. That's really exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you'll be the next Duolingo.
We'll be better. We'll be bigger than Duolingo.
I know. It'll be better. It'll be better. All right. Thanks. You can just hit these buttons and.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thanks.
So we have a hiatus for a while.
So we are back on Wednesday, December 2nd. So we have about 2 weeks. So that night, we only have 3 that night. Is that correct? Or do I only have?
No.
So I guess I must only print out one sheet.
Yeah, no, so that night, it's actually not even a night. It's an afternoon.
An afternoon, sorry. It's an afternoon.
Yeah, we have 8.
Oh, I guess I need
it?
to print out my second sheet.
Do we have another one, or is that it?
Well, I don't know, because I only have one sheet.
I only have one sheet too, but I don't have any day after the 2nd.
Okay.
No, I think that was it, isn't it?
Yeah, 1, 2.
Wow.
That was the 5th night.
Yep. So we're done. 2nd.
Well, a reminder, take that time if you haven't already to start filling out your evaluations and making sure they're submitted. Well, that's a reminder to me as well. So somebody shoot me a text and remind me. And thank you. This has been, you're a great group. I mean, I love that there's a lot of good questions.
All right.
Karen, when are you going to bring this before council? When do you think you'll bring this before council?
So Polly, it could be like the first meeting in January. It could be.
Right, because we still have to decide allocation formula.
Yeah, and then we only have, so I would say, not could be, I would say it will be in probably that first meeting in January.
Karen, I don't think so, Karen. I think it's gonna be later.
Well, January.
Yeah, because we got to decide on the allocation formula, and then we got to do the actual deliberations and say yes, yay, or nay.
January.
Yeah, January sometime. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we discussed it would probably, based on our timing, that it would probably be late January to present it to council.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to let you know the growing gardens thing. So I mean, I was fine, but but what they announced to us is they were getting out of the community garden management business. I mean, so when they said our strength is we really want to focus on education and which was fine. But then when they said we're managing all these community gardens, I'm like, what?
Leaving us in the lurch, but you're still doing it.
So yeah, it's like, oh, that's a different story. So I was a little
Well, they sent you the B template letter and thought
then they said the city didn't support the staff. I'm like, oh, give me a break. I don't know. This is sorry. But,
it's complicated.
Well, and that, only the gardens in Longmont have an element involved.
Right.
It's
So they dropped all of the Longmont gardens and they kept the Boulder one. So it just was.
Yeah, that
it's a little
I don't
pain.
like that.
Sorry. That was a surprise because I thought they totally got out of the garden management business, which would have made sense. I would get that. But.
What do they said, well, a lot of places the community just manages it. Well,
Yeah.
Really?
Whatever. So anyhow, sorry, I was a little surprised.
It's okay.
Okay.
All right, everybody.
Have a great Red Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
You too. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Running the show, Brian.